We know that you wanted to be at the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference, but you can't come all the days. We have a day pass where you can come on Saturday, where you get to hear great speakers like Pastor Doug Wilson, Pastor Jared Longshore, Pastor Toby Sumter, Cross Politics Live Show with Jason Whitlock and Megan Basham. Join us for the Sabbath Feast, where we get to laugh with comedian John Branyan, all for the low, low price of $99. Sign up for the day pass, flfnetwork.com. Looking forward to seeing you there at the conference.
That's how it's gonna be. That's got a good beat. This is not a psalm.
Oh, you're right. My bad. There is.
What happens when Meet the Press comes to Moscow, Idaho, and we got our own cameras?
The truth gets told.
The truth gets told. What happens? Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politics. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox and the Water Boy. This is Beer and Psalms Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Cheers
sir.
to the
What
king.
do you guys got something here for this thing?
I
Fat
got you.
tire and a can.
I got
Oh,
you.
I got it. You got it.
I'm
Okay.
doing the Black Butte Porter from Bend, Oregon.
Cheers to the king.
Cheers to
So,
the king.
so we forgot to organize this a little bit, Toby. We're going to play a video, and then you're going to do the
Okay. Great.
plug.
Okay. Cool.
So we're going to start here. So like I said, Meet the Press came into town. A lot of you guys, we're just assuming most of you guys saw Meet the Press with
NBC.
with called The Rise of Theocracy, Christian Nationalism
I think
in
it's
America.
Theocracy Rising.
Theocracy Rising.
Theocracy Rising.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that's special.
Like
Yeah.
the title.
And so, but what
Love and thunder.
Doug agreed to the interview. Pastor Wilson agreed to the interview as long as we had our camera
Yeah,
present. And
right.
so there was overall Meet the Press I don't think painted a bad picture on us, or did a bad edit. There's some goofy things in it, some worldview issues, and there's maybe a couple edits where it's like, man, we wish they would have included this or whatever. So overall, Meet the Press was fine. But
I like how he takes the universal us on this. It's so great.
I'm just agreeing.
No,
I'm just assuming.
it's okay.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. But there's one clip that Doug released after the interview went out and said, "Hey, here's something that we wish they would have included
Right.
Or pieces of
in
it,
the
yeah.
cut or pieces they would have included in the edit."
So how would Moscow change then?
Oh, you'd get a lot more tolerance.
You'd get more tolerance
absolutely.
because your critics say you're intolerant.
That's what they say.
What would change about the character of Moscow?
Oh, people would stop spitting on people's windows. You wouldn't try to run people out of town. You wouldn't accuse them of being a cult, things like that.
Should women be subservient to men?
No,
No.
the world is hierarchical, but that is not a disparagement of women. So if the question, going back to your original question, if you were asking, would women be allowed to talk? Would they be allowed to go out in public, or would we wrap them up in reformed evangelical burqas?
Would they be allowed to wear pants?
No, absolutely not.
So when you say wives should be submissive to their husbands, does this mean why shouldn't they be equal?
Well, because God created us a certain way. In my marriage, I'm married to a woman who believes this divine order as firmly as I do, and independently of me. She already believed that before we got together. So together, we have a harmonious relationship because we are on the same page when it comes to this. I have a particular role, she has a particular role, and we both know in Christian theology, the submission of the wife to the husband does not communicate or telegraph weakness or inferiority. Because also in Christian theology, Jesus, the Son of God, submitted to his Father when he went to the cross.
So good.
He was submitting to his Father. So it's a fundamental tenet of Christian theology that submission does not equal inequality.
You better preach, Pastor.
Whoa.
Here's a you, Pastor. Wait,
Yeah, right. Cheers to Pastor Doug.
that was good.
Trigger warning. If you're not comfortable with God's mandate to fill and subdue the world through fruitful households headed by masculine men, press mute now.
What?
Mute. If you're hearing this, you know it's hard to find anyone who shares your convictions on marriage and culture. You know, people who agree with Pastor Doug. So it's hard to find anyone to marry. Dominion Dating is solving that problem. We're the only dating site that vets users for their commitment to biblical gendered piety. In fact, they all have to watch that clip and say, do you agree with it or not? Our free beta opens September. Join the marriage. What? Just September? Join the marriage reformation at Dominion Dating. Dominion.dating.
Yeah, that was.
Did I read it right?
Dominion.dating.
There's actually a .dating.
Dating.
That's incredible.
Dominion.dating's a
Be
whoa.
careful what you. Okay, but www.dominion.dating.
Yeah.
There we
I didn't
go.
even know there was a .dating. Now
Interesting.
there's a .. I had no idea.
First time I've ever
cool.
seen that.
It makes,
Me too.
it makes me a little
Way to
nervous,
go,
but I'm not
Dominion.
going to forget that website now.
Yeah.
Dominion.dating.
And when you say it, you have to say it. Dating.
Dating. All right. All right. So that was so they had used a clip of that in the interview process, and the hilarious thing about there's a couple things that struck me about that clip. For one, Doug's maintaining that Moscow would actually be more tolerant than it is now, and if anybody has lived here in Moscow, actually would agree with that. Any normal person in town would actually agree with that, because we've been. Every time we tried to get a building permit in town, it takes us months to get anything done. Our New St. Andrews tries to get a building permit. We've had our tires slashed. We've had windows spit on, as Doug referenced. We have constant vandalism on our businesses in town.
I was going to say
my kids clean the church offices.
Okay.
The downtown theater, and there's video surveillance, but that doesn't slow anybody down. And I would say on average, 2 to 3 times a week, there's spit on the windows.
You know all it is? It's just love.
I know.
It's just it's just them showing
saliva love.
Secular love is what that is.
And then the other thing is, and we'll get into more of this later when we get to the roundtable there. So they had this, probably the first 15 minutes of the Meet the Press was kind of focusing on Moscow.
It was 20 minutes,
And then, the last 8 minutes was this roundtable.
Right.
But in this particular, once they start getting into the conversation about subservient versus submission versus equality.
Right.
That's where you start seeing the worldviews just talk way past each other in all this.
Right.
Do you consider Christ Church a church?
I don't.
Really?
I really don't.
What is it then?
I see it as a dominionist cult.
Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens leads the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Palouse.
So this is what they think is normal Christianity in America. Woman pastor, Unitarian, and they were using this part of the interview to contrast what Christ Church's version of Christianity is versus, the Unitarian welcome all relationships.
Going to a Unitarian Universalist to ask about Christ Church being Christian is like going to Burger King asking for a pizza. Okay,
exactly.
That's exactly what this
right.
is.
Yeah,
in there. So I hadn't gone and looked at Universalists. What do they believe again? Oh yeah, they describe themselves as the most liberal religion out there.
Yeah,
they embrace atheism and Buddhists and Christians, of course. Their beliefs about the Bible, it's not required.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more I thought was pretty funny about this. God. Some Unitarian Universalists believe in God. Some don't.
Right.
That's who they went to.
Right. Yeah.
And so
to contrast.
Right.
Now this doesn't say
to describe whether something's a church or not.
right. Yeah. They would know. But the thing is, it's not so much about the Unitarian Universalist thing. Yeah. It's more about the journalism. Even a very honest person doing journalism would say, okay, what are the people that are the normative, average evangelical Christians? How do they look at I would expect them to have those people to say, well, yeah, we can think but they know they won't get the answer that they want.
Right.
And so they went to the far out, completely outside of them.
Right.
It's just not, it's disingenuous in every way when it comes to doing journalism.
Yeah. Right. But that's where the worldviews, I think, really started falling apart. And then they go on to apparently interview, you always got to find some couple that comes to your church and leaves and then doesn't like you anymore, some sort of fellowship of the grievance. Well, they found a couple.
Women should wear women's clothes. They shouldn't wear pants.
Shouldn't have short hair.
Men shouldn't wear earrings. No one should have tattoos.
And then there was this, a psalm sing in the middle of the pandemic, protesting the local mask mandate.
Right.
Is that your mom?
That's my mom there with pants on.
No.
Pants.
Does your mom go to our church?
She goes to our church. Yeah.
Is she in church discipline or anything?
No, not at all.
No. Okay, so she's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, I just
just a little bit of research by Meet the Press, and they wouldn't have kept that in there.
Well,
just a little bit.
And speaking of journalists, did they notice? Because that's quite the cut.
Okay, everything on a project goes through a QC. You know what QC is? Quality control, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody
But
does
that
something,
cut, you think they knew?
well, I think when you have a motive, you can't see very clearly.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm guessing.
So-
I'm guessing they didn't see it, but I'm just thinking, man, what a gift from the Lord.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to wear pants, and then
cut to the very next clip.
all the women singing psalms
And they're wearing, and they look like
pants.
women too.
Yeah.
So those are some of the clips that we wanted to highlight for you guys about some of the I think some of the setup for where the roundtable is going to go.
Okay.
So here we get into the roundtable, and they actually start off with kind of defining, what is, or we're going to actually cut to the clip where they're defining what is Christian nationalism, because this whole controversy that's brewing is over the rise of theocracy and Christian nationalism.
Look at that nice stained
Look at that
glass.
round table.
Look at that stained glass. Talking about theocracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because really when we look at it, Christian nationalism, and Anthea brought this up earlier, is about power. And when we think of that in terms of a democracy and a functioning democracy, it's about sharing power and playing by the same rules. And so with Christian nationalism, we find over and over that if it comes down to democracy or power, they're going to choose power every time. And so this idea of a country for the people, by the people, it's really a country for a particular people, by a particular people. And so for those in the GOP, trying to figure out, are we really about democracy where we're going to play by the same rules or not? And that's the big question, I think, at stake.
Okay, and so this roundtable, I think, gets really confused quick. Here, and this guy's trying to define kind of what, Christian nationalism is, and then he points to our country's a democracy. We aren't a democracy, we're a republic. But let's just
Representative Republic.
But let's just give him let's just say, okay, our country's a democracy. Well, that's all democracy is raw power. It's just the 51%.
He makes a false equivocation between
100%.
It basically said democracy twice or power twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Democracy is a way of distributing power.
that's right.
Right.
And you're going to get 51%.
Right.
That's it. I don't think he wants that nation either.
Well, and so then if that's the case, if democracy is what he's arguing for, then what's wrong with the people who all agree with what their worldview is, deciding to vote for that thing and forcing that 49% to do what they want?
Yeah.
If you're all about democracy, then what's the problem?
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with how they're painting the picture between Christianity and what they call Christian nationalism and democracy. I completely disagree with how they're dividing those two things up. But if there is this democracy that you're for, then you can't criticize this side over here.
Yeah.
Because
No, you can't.
democracy is all about power. And anybody who is a minority, who is a black person, who is a white person, and who is a Christian male, right? Anybody who's a minority has to hate democracy.
Yeah.
Because all that is at the end of the day is whoever has the most power is now the Lord over you.
Is that for 51%?
Right.
But to quote Tom
But
Askell,
Christianity is completely different.
to quote Tom Askell, if logic was COVID, this table wouldn't catch it.
Bars.
So he goes on. They go on to actually. This is actually an interesting follow up comment where they're going to talk about where do you draw the line when it becomes Christian nationalism? And listen to this. It kind of follows up this guy's comments.
Yeah, Anthea, where would you draw the line? Because there are many people on the left side of the political spectrum who say, yeah, you should incorporate more teachings of the Bible into your public policy. But what is that line where it becomes Christian nationalism?
I think the line becomes when people become so dogmatic that they want to step over into a violent space. And what I mean by that is the people who want to impose something on someone else. I think one of the great things about America is that it's a democracy, right? And that America got started by people who were escaping religious autonomy so they could have religious freedom. And so one of the things I think is really important here in the delineation between what is Christian nationalism and what is not Christian nationalism is what are people trying to impose? Are they trying to use their Christian nationalism to do a takeover? And then finally, who gets to be included as a Christian, in America? And I think that's a really important part.
Well, she's all merged together with everything.
She's talking about Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah. With a violent space.
Right.
Okay, so start from
burning down
Antifa.
police stations.
So, Pastor, start from the back end. Let's just take. I kind of want to separate things for her. She's asking who gets to be a Christian in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who gets to be a Christian?
Christians?
People who believe in Jesus and who are baptized. And okay, who gets to be an American?
Americans.
People who have the citizenship, who were born here,
Right.
who have somehow gained citizenship through the process.
Right.
Those are
Baptism.
Right. Those are two different. Yeah. That's what
great.
Great. Thanks,
Oh,
Gabe.
great.
Those are two different categories that she's merged together. Nobody's arguing for that. Nobody's arguing that reality at all,
Yeah.
right? What she's trying to argue for, nobody's arguing for that. So that's
And nobody's arguing that you have to like convert to Christianity by the sword.
Oh, we'll get there.
But and nor is it. Oh, we're
No,
arguing
we're
that.
not.
Yeah, no, we're not. Nor are we arguing that anybody in the civil magistrate gets to control what happens in your church,
Right.
and nobody in your church, right, gets to live in the office of a civil magistrate outside of rightly being elected to that position. Which again, if you're for all this democracy, what's wrong with that?
Part of the thing that they're playing with, they're not actually addressing is, and the other guy, the guy that was talking
Andrew,
about power
Whitehead.
and democracy, Whitehead, he was talking about playing by the same rules.
Right.
And I just want to ask him, which rules?
Right.
Yeah.
Which rules? I'm all good with playing by the same rules if we're talking about biblical justice.
Yeah.
Talking about biblical rules, but everybody's playing by rules.
Right.
And it's disingenuous of them to say, well, if you're being good, it's fine, but if you're being bad, it's bad.
Define good.
Well, yeah, define good, define bad. Because the liberals stand for murdering babies in their mother's womb.
Yeah.
I mean, is that coercion? Is that violence? Is that a violent space?
Yeah.
I would call that a violent space.
And by the way,
right.
And people who want to disfigure children's bodies with hormones and trans surgeries. Is that a violent space?
Yeah.
I would call that a violent space. Burning down police stations. That's a violent space.
That's right.
That's being coercive. That's being violent. But of course, it's all begging the question of what's your standard?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the other thing she was talking about is like when you're trying to force your beliefs onto somebody else. But what everybody needs to make sure that they realize is that when you're working about policy and you're working about laws, everybody, when they're working through policy, is bringing a morality to what is right and what is wrong to say this is what's going to disciple us to being more human.
We are always legislating morality.
Yes. And so
don't say we can't legislate morality. No, you're always passing a law that is either moral or immoral based on God's standards. That's inescapable.
Yeah. So this next clip is kind of an odd statement and trying to also kind of continue on the line of defining what is Christian nationalism.
And Andrew, is it almost a feature that Moscow is the place trying to do this because they almost want to be reactionary to the majority of the population? It's easier to find fundamentalists in a place that maybe you feel like you're the outsider.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the insights of sociology is it's easiest to define who we are when we know who we're not. And so when you can define yourself against who you're not, that's really powerful. It creates very powerful in-group bonds. We're going to pull together. We're going to face the outside threat, the things that we're afraid of, and it becomes a really central part of your identity. And that's what's so powerful about Christian nationalism.
All right.
First of all, I reached out to Whitehead on Twitter and said, hey, come on our show. Let's talk about this first. He's like, oh, yeah. Email me. Gave me his email address, and I haven't heard from him.
Well, maybe he'll come now because that right there is like, what nobody saying, man, we need to meet the press out here.
Right.
We ain't stunting y'all.
No.
Y'all chasing our fires. Okay.
Yeah.
We sitting here loving Jesus, loving our neighbors.
Why did you decide
and
to
y'all
come to Moscow?
coming to Moscow? What is Moscow?
All right. And notice also calling it reactionary when, up until about, 10 minutes ago, everything that they think is crazy. I mean, what's the gal's name that interviewed Pastor Doug?
Ann Thompson?
Ann Thompson.
Yeah.
She's like, she tweeted out, right after everything went live that Pastor Wilson and Christ Church want to make their city a Christian city.
Yeah.
They believe that wives should submit to their own husbands, and they don't believe in abortion or gay marriage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually. Do you have that clip?
But that's like, okay, that's like basic Christianity 101 for the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
And until about 15 minutes ago was the vast majority of American Christians.
Democracy? That's the thing, Pastor, that I think it needs to be really observed here. That clip that we played earlier about them going to the Unitarian pastor, that wasn't a clip about Christians identifying who's Christian or not. That was a clip about them saying this is the only kind of Christianity that we're willing to allow in the new world.
That's right.
You got to understand that when they talk about abortion, when they talk about homosexuality, identity, she talks about it in one of the clips. What's going on there is saying, hey, the new world doesn't allow you to have any sort of disagreement with this. And the reason that Christians care about them aren't because they're trying to fight against those things being normative. They're saying it is not loving to kill a child in the womb.
Right.
It is not loving to allow other people to live outside of the identity that they God has given them as a man or as a woman.
Right.
You will hurt yourself being a homosexual. It will be destructive for you. Do you understand me? This identity, what is transgenderism?
Yeah.
That right there, they're cutting your parts off.
Right. Right.
When we're talking, we're not in fear of what's going on. We're saying this is how you live like a human.
Right.
This is Christian humanism. This is what it looks like to love your neighbor.
Right.
Not to allow people to cut their members off.
Right.
Not let them kill babies in the womb.
Right.
Like that's what we're after.
Right. Yeah.
This is how we love each other.
It's and so they're. I mean, it's the roundtable sort of discussing us. I've said this a couple of times. It's like we're like some sort of Aboriginal tribe, and they're like this, like National Geographic, and they're like, what do you think they're doing in their natural habitat?
Out in the wilderness,
submitting to their husbands,
right?
Like they submit the wives to their husbands,
and they want everybody in their city to be Christian.
Yeah, but like again, it's flipped upside down and backwards.
Yeah.
And this is normal. This is normal life.
Yeah.
This is actually how the world is made.
God is in heaven.
Yeah.
He's made male and female, one man, one woman in covenant marriage. That's the only kind of marriage there is.
That's right.
The goodness and the glory of being made male and female. That hierarchy, that glory, that beauty. That's where human flourishing is.
That's right.
And no amount of lying and playing with these things changes any of that.
For the sake of time, we're going to skip a couple of videos and we're going to end on this video so we can get into the Psalm of the Day. But this last clip I want to show you, Haley, go to the clip where we're going to skip 2 videos and go into the clip where Jesus invited people to the gospel. He didn't force them to become Christians. That's skip 2 clips to the third clip.
And by the way, going back to Christianity, and Ann, maybe you could shed some light on this, but Christianity, I mean, Jesus Christ invited people to follow. It was never an imposition, right? Because
let's put it like that. He did not twist their arm. You could come or not. You want to follow this guy, you don't. Yeah. That's all it is.
Follow this guy, or you don't. This is elite mainstream media and where it's gone. They start off with a Unitarian pastor, and now they're talking about this.
They know Jesus.
This Jesus.
I don't mind when they bring up Jesus because I always feel like this is, you want to talk about Jesus?
Let's talk about Jesus.
Except they didn't ever invite me to be part of that conversation, but, what did Paul say? Paul says that God raised Jesus from the dead and now he is the judge of the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he is requiring all men everywhere to repent of their sins.
Yeah.
What did Jesus say though?
Yeah.
All authority
in heaven
and on earth has been given to me, right?
He said to the cities of Jerusalem, it's going to be better for the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah in the judgment than for you because you saw these mighty signs, these mighty works were done in your cities and you still didn't believe.
The command of Jesus for all men everywhere to repent, right? And to believe and to follow and obey. That's the command. Yeah. Don't forget, we're talking about the same Jesus that beat people all up inside the temple, right? Hey, 40 acres. He just whooping folks.
Twice. Not just once.
Cleansing out folks.
Beginning of John, end of John.
And to be clear, our job is not to coerce anybody.
Nah.
Our job is to preach the gospel, proclaim the gospel, call them, but we do command them in the name of Jesus that they need to repent now because it's now or later.
Yeah.
It's coming.
But
you're going to get coerced eventually.
So, but there's still
either to hell or to heaven.
But don't miss what they did here though too. They merged things together. They merged things together in the sense that when we're talking about law, you still can't steal. You still can't commit adultery.
Right. They believe in coercion.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's things that you still can't do. You can't commit murder.
Right.
And those who commit murder should be put to death. Like this is all God's law. So when we're talking the civil area, let's remember the commands of God here. And there's also a spiritual and a church environment that don't have the same sort of authority. And they want to merge all things together.
Right.
Now, does the words of God influence political? Absolutely.
Right.
And you have to obey those too.
Right.
But they want to merge everything together with this theocracy rising. And nobody's
that's why
that
table is really a Unitarian table.
That's
that is
true.
their worldview.
Yeah,
and that's all you get to be in their new world.
That's right. Speaking of great journalism, we're on a mission to make magazines great again. So subscribe to our Fight, Laugh, Feast magazine. It's a quarterly mini book-like experience packed full of a variety of authors that include theological-driven cultural commentary, a psalm of the quarter, recipes for feasting, laughter sprinkled throughout the glossy pages, and more. Sign up your church, sign up your grumpy uncle, sign up, what's her name, Anne?
Thompson?
Thompson? Yeah, she probably needs a subscription. Disclaimer, this magazine will guarantee various responses, and Cross Politics is not held liable for any of them. Reading the whole magazine may cause theological maturation, possibly encourage your kids to take the Lord's Supper with you after they've been baptized, and will likely cause you to randomly chuckle and enjoy God's wondrous world. Sign up today. 4 issues are just $60 per year. That's it. Go to fightlaughfeast.com right now and sign up. Psalm of the day, Psalm 124. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side when men rose up against us, then they had swallowed us up quick when their wrath was kindled against us. Then the waters had overwhelmed us. The stream had gone over our soul. Then the proud waters had gone over our soul. Blessed be the Lord who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken and we are escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. Psalm 124 is one of the psalms we're going to be singing in Knoxville.
Yeah.
One of the psalms that we're going to be singing that first night and throughout the conference. This is a psalm of praise for deliverance. The psalm acknowledges that it was the Lord being on our side that delivered us when men rose up against us. We would have been swallowed up alive. The waters would have overwhelmed us. Their proud schemes and wrath would have consumed us. The praise is, blessed be the Lord, who did not give us as a prey to their teeth, likening enemies to predatory animals. The picture of escape is vividly described as a bird escaping the snare of hunters. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. And the psalm closes with an exuberant line, our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalms like this are given to us because God's people have frequently been hunted over the centuries.
Yeah.
On the one hand, this is a reminder not to be surprised by the schemes of evil men. Whether these are singular schemes of particular enemies or the coordinated attacks of powerful regimes, we should not be surprised. They hate God, they hate his Christ, and so they hate us. They hate the truth, they hate the light, and they seek to destroy it. And they seek to destroy it by destroying us. So don't be surprised when enemies rise up against you at work, in your family, in the church, in your community, in the newspaper, in NBC News, Meet the Press, in the nation. In
your
fact,
police department.
In fact, Jesus says that you should be really worried if everyone speaks well of you all the time. Of course, you may not be a belligerent jerk, and always be willing to admit when you're actually wrong and you've sinned. And the people closest to you should laugh at the thought of you being too proud to apologize. But when you've double-checked all that, you should not be shocked when you have enemies. And then you know what to do with them. Love them. Do good to them, pray for them, and then trust God to protect you and deliver you from them all. Romans 8 says that if God is for us, who can be against us? And of course, what it means is, who can actually stand against us? People certainly can rise up against us, oppose us, and seek to undermine our churches, our businesses, our families. But if God is on our side, he will rise up and defend us. We know this because he has done so in the cross. He who did not spare his own son, how will he leave us as prey to be consumed by wicked men?
Amen.
How will he not with him give us all things? And this is why Romans 8 closes with that triumphant declaration that in all these things, and what it's talking about is persecution, famine, nakedness, sword, being killed all day long, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. So, as you see enemies in your life, see opportunities for your God to be on your side, to rise up and defend you and your family and your business and your church and the truth. And when he does, you better notice and you better burst out in this song.
That's right.
Blessed be the Lord who has not given us as prey to their teeth. Our help is in the name of the Lord, maker of heaven and earth.
Amen.
To the King.
To the King. Cheers.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told.
We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.
This is where Dave and I plan this year's company holidays. Let's go through the list. Easter, too religious.
St. Patrick's Day?
Too white. Mother's Day? Way too cisgendered. All of your usual holidays have been canceled this year.
But we still have Karl Marx's birthday! Ha
Need a real reason to party? Find a new job at redballoon.work.
When I talk to families about NSA, I'm almost always asked, what do our graduates do? The short answer is that NSA grads end up in a wide variety of disciplines: founders of businesses, filmmakers and producers, doctors, writers, marketers, financial experts, lawyers, teachers, pastors, consultants, software developers, and more. And it's a good question, but there is something that we need to talk about when it comes to this question. It shows how much our society has bought into the idea that a college degree is primarily about certifying you for a particular job. A college education ought to reach far higher than mere job training. The original goal of higher ed was to train, shape, and prepare our young people to be cultural leaders wherever they go, no matter what career they land in. Think of it like this: the historic liberal arts student, the student we are cultivating at NSA, is a mechanic for maintaining a just, equitable, and free society. The question I would ask you is, does our society need such mechanics today? Would this graduate have lots of work to do? Well, yes, an overwhelming amount of work. Today we live in a society that is falling apart largely because we stopped equipping our students with the know-how they need to build, preserve, and fight for our freedoms, culture, and society. If your son or daughter faithfully pursues this type of education, it means that they will always have plenty of productive, fruitful work to do, because there are just so few people being prepared in this way. Think of any organization, a business, a nonprofit, a local government. What do they need? People. In particular, they need people who are equipped to problem solve, communicate, think outside the box, work well with a team, all while being moral and ethical. Students trained in the liberal arts are equipped in these areas, making them highly employable. Employment for the Christian goes far beyond landing a job as a coder and has more to do with being a leader if you end up coding. Over the centuries, liberal arts graduates have taken on countless critical leadership roles in a wide range of industries, becoming professors, pastors, writers, politicians, legal experts, and founders of businesses. Such leaders forged our nation. And beyond their day jobs, such people go on to do really important work like building schools, churches, and other key organizations that serve as places of refuge and strength in a broken land. Even more importantly, they go on to start strong families and raise the next generation of saints. The result of such education is dynamic communities centered around worshiping the triune God and enjoying Him forever. The switch from viewing college education as mere job training to that higher calling of leadership building is a serious paradigm shift. But the more I see our graduates go out and build, both here in Moscow and in the world at large, the more I see the long-term fruit of this orientation shift. For decades, the American college campus has been the battleground upon which the church lost the next generation. We send our kids away to college, and they come back with their faith destroyed, and their allegiances converted to woke ideologies. But it doesn't have to be like this. College can be the culmination of our children's Christian education, where their love of God is strengthened. Here, they are given the tools not only to follow in the footsteps of their ancestors, but to stand on the shoulders of their forebears and to rebuild the walls of Christendom. For this reason, New St. Andrews was founded, and for this reason, we continue to gift our students with the liberal arts so they can reach their higher callings. To learn more, visit the link in this post, and as always, I'd love to chat if you want to learn more.